Hello, my name is Jelly, and welcome to something a bit different. You may have noticed I have a huge amount of VODs on this channel. Well, not really a huge amount, I have very long VODs on this channel. Still not all of them are uploaded, but these are from my playthrough about 6 months ago on the game Danganronpa 2. I love the game, and every week while playing the game, I was thinking and trying to predict what came next. Who the killer might be, but also the game's mastermind. And I had one big theory, that I shall lovingly call the Fuyuhiko Sister theory. I love this theory so much that it's still a little bit of a meme to me. And I thought I would share what this theory is and why I love it so much with all of you. Now, before we go any further, I should remind you that I have not seen the anime to accompany Danganronpa 2, or neither have I played the third installment of the game, or the extra one, Ultra Despair Girls. So if something I say is contradicted by information found in either of these, please remember this was a working theory I had at the time. Please don't spoil the games for me to play on a future stream. And maybe leave a comment being like, hey Jelly, this part you said right here is wrong. Because something happens if you watch the anime here, or you play this chapter of the third game, you'll find this out. I should also mention that the video will heavily spoil Danganronpa 1 and Danganronpa 2. So maybe watch gameplay of those, or play them yourself, if you want to be fully prepared going into this. As I said, I do have VODs on here of me playing the game. Feel free to watch them. So before we get into the theory, what is Danganronpa? For those who haven't seen it or played it, but still want to watch the theory anyway. Well, Danganronpa is a murder mystery story-based game, where the premise is to find out who committed each murder, the story is linear, and the outcome of the kills is always the same. With the slight exception of one part of Danganronpa 1 that has a bonus fake end. But Danganronpa's story is complex. At its core, 15 or so students, all suffering amnesia, including your character, are trapped, and the only way you are told you can leave is if you kill another student. Once the student is killed, time for investigation is allocated and a trial is held. If the killer is found guilty, they are then to be executed. However, if someone else is found guilty, the killer is allowed to leave, and all the remaining students get executed instead. Thus, apart from the killer, it is in everyone's best interest to find out who is the killer. The overall game follows a basic structure pattern, with the last chapter being a face-off to reveal who the mastermind behind the whole game was and try to escape alive. Pretty simple, all things considered. On to the theory itself. And like all stories, it's best to start at the beginning. I just finished the first chapter of Danganronpa 2 and was thinking to myself about the characters of the game. At the time, I was thinking of making a How to Survive Danganronpa series, with the first video to be dedicated to the ultimate, status that you possess. And every character is selected to attend Hope's Peak Academy by being the ultimate student in their chosen field. Now, these fields include stuff such as the ultimate swimmer, as shown by Hina, or the ultimate chef, like Teru Teru, and are based on actual career abilities. Thus, in this video, I would have dubbed them profession abilities. Others, such as Makoto and Nagito's ultimate luck, is more of an ethereal concept. These are based on the concept of luck, which is ambiguous and subjective. And within this, I'd also put concepts like hope and despair. But it is the third category that sparked this theory, which I dubbed ultimate titles. Now, these are ultimates that gain their ultimate not by ability, but by status. This wouldn't include characters like Byakuya, who show that they have the ability to follow up their status. But more characters like Mondo or Fuyuhiko, who simply have their title due to their position in the outside world, and are so extremely limited in the world of Danganronpa. Now, when placing characters into these categories, Mondo made sense. We found out in Danganronpa 1 that he got the title after his brother passed away, and he simply took up the coat and became the bike leader we know today. But Fuyuhiko? I'd only just met him. But I was really struggling to see him as the ultimate Yakuza. Now, I wasn't, and am still not, an expert in the Yakuza, but I never really felt like he fitted the mould. After all, almost all characters heavily draw from their ultimate inspiration. Shiaki is almost always playing games, and Mihiru always carries a camera. But if you were to show me Fuyuhiko, I would never be able to guess what his ultimate was. But his personality should really spell it out, I hear you cry. Well, no, not at all. He was lonesome and verbally aggressive in wanting to be left alone. But he wasn't violent or manipulative, or trying to create his own gang, or anything that seems mafia-like. And yes, I do understand there are some differences between the Mafia and the Yakuza, with Yakuza being much more honourable in how they act, at least from what I've heard. But still, none of this spelt Yakuza. What it spelt was a child with the weight of power behind him, and that power alienating him from everyone around him. This should help set the scene. Before going into Chapter 2, I had my eyes on Fuyuhiko, and this would become really significant when Chapter 2 did something most chapters rarely ever do. Chapters in Danganronpa are to differentiate between each trial period, and Monokuma usually begins each chapter offering a motive to get the violence started. Monokuma, by the way, is the avatar that is used by the Mastermind in each game. How have we got this far into a Danganronpa video without mentioning Monokuma? I don't know. This motive is normally universal in nature, but may be skewed to more heavily tease or lure certain members of the group. But it is very rare that these directly target a member and single them out. The exception to this rule is when the Mastermind is specifically trying to eliminate one person. This normally being either the traitor, but even then that's normally directed at the other cast, so they find the traitor amongst them. The other exception is Kyoko, when she got too close in discovering the Mastermind, and therefore he tried eliminating them from the game. Well, Chapter 2 of Danganronpa 2 did just this. Chapter 2's motive is a game that Monokuma tells the cast is a game he created based on real events. The game is broken down into parts, and while most people normally play the first part, not many realise the second part exists. The game starts on day 2 and follows 5 schoolgirls, named from letter A to E. They had discovered their girl the day before and believe it is down to some pervert. Girl D admits taking pictures of the scene, which causes girl E to get aggravated and demand her delete it. The game continues to day 4, where screaming can be heard, and girl E is soon found dead. However, when you play part 2, the game begins on day 1. From the beginning, girl E is missing. They hear glass shattering upstairs, and that's where they find girl E. They need to get through a locked door and have to go and get the key, but once they get inside, they found, in quote-unquote, the dead girl, as listed in the credits. Girl E convinces them that it must be the pervert, and the girl must have caught him, so he killed her. Day 3 begins, and we find out that girl D, who had took the pictures, is confronting girl E, and girl E admits that it was her who killed the girl. That the girl had been bullying girl D, and she lost her temper, strangled her, and then to avoid further troubles, stabbed her. All this is overheard by Guy F, who checks the camera girl D threw away, reveals that the dead girl was his sister, and that he will never forgive girl E. Yes, I just explained the entire game within a game to you, but this is important. It ends with credits, and we see that girls A to D are all cast members, with girl D being Mihiru, Guy F is revealed to be Fuyuhiko, Both girl E, who was called Sato, and Fuyuhiko Sister, who was called Natsumi, obviously aren't present in the main cast. The first person who beat the game wins a prize, and this prize turns out to be the photos took of the incident. And here we see Fuyuhiko Sister, brutally murdered, as well as Sato. Fuyuhiko ends up winning these photos, confronts Mihiru, and this sets out the trial for Danganronpa 2, Chapter 2. You see where I find this odd? After first questioning Fuyuhiko's identity, Fuyuhiko ends up being one of the 5 characters involved in the game. Not only this, girls A to C, whilst present, aren't at all the focus of the story, leaving both Mihiru and Fuyuhiko as the sole targets of this motive. These two alone were the only ones to be able to determine the legitimacy of the game. Sato was a close friend of Mihiru before Hope's Peak, and Fuyuhiko obviously being Natsumi's brother. Although what's especially interesting here is the photos given as a reward. If we look again, the photo of Sato doesn't show her face, whereas Natsumi's clearly does. This at least suggests to me that instead of provoking Mihiru, the aim of this motive was to provoke Fuyuhiko, making Fuyuhiko the sole target of this motive. Although this isn't quite true, Peko, the ultimate swordswoman, is the personal hitman of Fuyuhiko's clan, and would also have known Natsumi. Although by the actions of Peko in the game, later revealed in Chapter 2, it is fair to say that she probably would not have acted unless she believed it was Fuyuhiko's will. She probably wouldn't have done anything of her own volition. She therefore was never the main target, only to be potentially used by proxy. So this leads me to ask, why was Fuyuhiko the main target here? Sure, motives have been aimed towards particular characters before, never to the degree of singling them unless to kill them? Well, we don't have many other options to go on, other than characters we already know. This leads me to Natsumi, Fuyuhiko's sister, still being alive. It is not beyond Monokuma's capabilities to present fake evidence. He even faked an entire murder in the previous game to get at his target, Kyoko. So how difficult would it be to create a game to tell a fake story, or at least a manipulated story? All this motive is provided by Monokuma, with the only sources of legitimacy coming from Fuyuhiko's ability to verify that it is his sister in the photo, and Mihiru being able to identify Sato's body without her face. Remember that all the characters have amnesia from their time at Hope's Peak. Sato's body would be difficult to confirm without a face, and if Mihiru was given a name that looked similar to the body, then it's likely she'll confirm it to be Sato without much evidence, making her easy to fake. If Natsumi was the mastermind, then her own crime wouldn't be that difficult to fake either. All she has to do is pretend to be dead whilst a picture is taken. Then, once the game is made, all is done. The cast will do the work for her and state that the event must have been real. That gives us a how, but it doesn't give us a why. Why would Natsumi go through so much effort and trouble to be the mastermind of this entire game and create this motive to specifically target her brother? Well, I have 2 answers to this. The first is going all the way back to that ultimate status part, and Fuyuhiko as the ultimate Yakuza. Now, Fuyuhiko didn't seem like the ultimate Yakuza character that I was expecting. But compare this to his sister. Natsumi is a somewhat arrogant and narcissistic character that bullies other classmates, including older classmates, and then bullies them enough for them to try and kill her. That is some next level maliciousness. Furthermore, she seems to be the kind of character that cares deeply about status and position. With her brother being in line to be the next head of the clan, well, she would then be next in line if he passes away. It will make sense to target him right out the gate and make him instantly get killed, all while hiding behind the identity of Monokuma and getting away scot-free. If no one suspects her of being behind her brother's demise, no one would really oppose her to succeeding him as the head of the clan. Setting up the entire game for this narrative would also prove her abilities to manipulate from behind the scenes and be influential in the real world. There is also the added benefit of getting rid of Mihiru, as well as the rest of her friends. Now, we only know this because of the game, which could be entirely fabricated by Monokuma. Although Monami does suggest there is legitimacy to the story, so maybe it's built on a half-truth. Maybe there is truth to her disliking Mihiru and her friends, and creating the entire game is one way to get rid of Mihiru and all of her friends. The second theory goes back to something Fuyuhiko mentions later in his fragment sections, that his sister would be the ultimate little sister. This seems much more caring than the previous theory suggests, and is instead a more positive spin on being a mastermind in a killing game. This theory is more Natsumi's effort to push Fuyuhiko to become the ultimate Yakuza, to overcome challenges, to test his loyalty to his family, how much he values his subordinates, and how he would change from being the more antisocial character that he is to a leader fit to rule a Yakuza clan. If he succumbs to rage and kills Mihiru, then how does he compose himself? How does he use the tools he has at his disposal to get away with it? She could then easily, depending on the results, lie, end the game, and get Fuyuhiko out there, kill the rest. Or let him die and return to plan 1 of ruling the Yakuza herself. In Chapter 2, though, Fuyuhiko doesn't fall to despair. Or well, he does, but not to murder. Peko murders instead of him, and he is left defending Peko. He admits that he couldn't kill Mihiru, and that he didn't think it was right. He even gets severely wounded in Peko's execution because he tries to protect her. This sets out Fuyuhiko's character as a protector, and something an ultimate little sister would surely look up to. This would also explain why Fuyuhiko is not targeted again. He has made the change that Natsumi wanted to see, and she then chooses to watch it play out. However, that was just my theory at the time, one I held on to until the end. Even when I was certain I had figured out the actual mastermind in Chapter 4, I still held out hope for Natsumi. The game's actual mastermind was Hajime, the character you play as all along. The game of Danganronpa is in fact a game within itself. So the game in Chapter 2 was a game within a game within a game. The reveal that Hajime was the ultimate student was one thing, and unfortunately very predictable. Especially after the game told us this in Chapter 4, with Nagato's book, where the main character is the murderer, but the story is told in a way that the reader doesn't find out. However, the reoccurring villain of Junko from the first game was another thing. There can apparently only ever be one Ultimate Despair capable of this killing game, which personally left a bad taste in my mouth. Natsumi really was killed by Sato, and Sato really was killed by Fuyuhiko. That's that then. The theory is no more. But wait, there's more! There were some odd little things I felt really helped tie this theory up. Chapter 3 follows just after Mihiru's murder. I do find it an odd coincidence that the next 3 characters who die in this chapter are the remaining female cast of the Chapter 2 motive. Girls A to C, this includes Ibuki and Hyoko, are both murdered by Mikan, who is also in that group. She in turn admits she loved the real Mastermind and did this act for them. We know that Mikan has somewhat of a masochistic nature, the potential for this love interest being a vicious character like Natsumi is high. Yes, this also fits Junko, but the odds that she, after playing the motive game, gets all 3 of Mihiru's remaining friends murdered, it just seems suspicious. Another thing is the reveal of Natsumi's face, but not Sato's. While my theory ran off this being used to target Fuyuhiko, it also seems likely to me a game developer would want to include the Mastermind at some point within the game itself. And by planting the seed of what Natsumi looks like, it does remind the player that she exists, so when revealed later, it's not someone you haven't seen before. Like Junko, if you've only played Danganronpa 2. One final takeaway is Danganronpa has a use of repetition. Certain themes tend to be repeated, and we see many of these play out in Danganronpa 2. From a troublemaker in the trial, to the idea of a traitor, as well as the idea of a serial killer. It wouldn't be out of place for a repeated theme to be that the Mastermind is a relative of the main cast, as Junko was the sister of Mikuru. It's a small detail, but would have been a nice nod to the previous game without a giant hologram Junko. All in all, it might sound like I'm bitter about the end of the game, and I might delve into that another time. But it was because I was so invested in the game and the theorizing that I didn't really find the ending as good as I hoped. But I won't fall into despair here. My personal little theory on how I would have liked the game to end and how I think it could have worked out, and the foundations for it already existing within the game, has been laid out here. There's probably a Danganronpa superfan that could discover more about this theory, or bury it deeper. But I don't mind either way. I'm happy with the theory that I have developed so far, and I'm happy to share this with the world, and, well, as far as I know, I'm the only one insane enough to see a confirmed dead character and believe they're the mastermind behind the entire game, although that would be another repeated theme in Danganronpa. With all that said and done, I hope you enjoyed my Danganronpa theory craft on why Natsumi Kazu, alternatively known as Fuyuhiko Sister, is the mastermind behind Danganronpa 2 Goodbye Despair. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and hit that bell like all other YouTubers tell you to do. And if you like this theory, say so in the comments and give it a share. Let other people know that this theory exists. Laugh at it if you think it's absolutely dumb, and share it if you think it's really good. Or bad. Either one. If you want to see me play Danganronpa 3, let me know in the comments, and check me out on Twitch at twitch.tv/jellyfishy8. And with that, I'll see you all next time. Bye bye.